And beautiful. We're up to Nun Chesamid Beis, right? Zoom Mishnah Rishayna. It's the second line. A second wide line. Zoom Mishnah Rishayna. This is what the first Mishnah said. However, we're talking over here about the thief that steals property. He said that it's not a good sale when he sells the property, even if the person then approaches the original owner to buy it from him, because we think the original owner is only agreeing to it because he doesn't want to get into trouble with this Sekrikin who could kill him. All right, okay. And say we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. That's of our learning. We should have the base of English immediately. Okay, so that was the Mishnah Rishayna. But the later best in Amro, they said, said that if you purchase something from the Sekrikin, which are these robbers that threaten the person with his life, they hijack the property. So then it is considered a good purchase, but you have to go back to the original owner and pay 1/4 of the price to the original owner. Now, I thought that what was happening is, we didn't know what was going on. Didn't know if Sekrikin was forcing a sale or if he was actually stealing it. Turns out that he was stealing the property. He wasn't forcing a sale. He just confiscated. He just took the property. And the buyer is buying it. Yeah, and the buyer is taking it from the Sekrikin. Now, so why does he go back and pay the? Well, it's for him. Everything is a profit because he stole it. So why does he have to pay the original owner 1/4? The answer is because we're assuming that the sale price on this property is going to be less than its actual value. Because since the person bought it, since the Sekrikin did not pay for it at all, so they don't care to sell it. He doesn't need a full price on this. He could sell it for less. He stole it.
He's very, very greedy.
Unless he's very greedy, right? But usually the thieves are not so greedy.
Which is interesting.
Turn it over.
So the Sekrikin stole it from person A, and then person B wants to buy it from the
Sekrikin. He has to go back to person A and pay the actual the difference of the actual value of the property between what he paid the Sekrikin and what it really should cost. And now he gives that little bit extra to the first owner. Basically, the purchaser, there's no free lunch.
Because he might be induced to buy it to encourage the Sekrikin because he could get a bargain property. So paying the full price from the original owner. He says, maybe I'll wait till the Sekrikin takes care of it.
Basically, he doesn't benefit, this guy. I hear what you're saying. You want to say to discourage buying from the thief. Maybe.
Have we read why this real property is treated differently than stolen metaltalin, where you're just expected to not to give it goes back to the owner?
Right. No, I don't know the explanation.
Thank you.
Maybe there was commentary on the Mishnah that I missed. I don't really see the commentaries explaining it. It must be a Gemara somewhere. I mean, we did see one point. We did see that everything okay? Oh. What we did see was that the original owner actually agrees to this agrees to give the property up because his life was in danger. So there is a little bit of a svara there to say, okay, so now it's the new persons. Now it's the Sakrikans. But it's not, I'm not sure why they had to institute that. I'm not sure. Okay. I'm a Rav. Rav says, Revia Bekarka, Revia B'mais. Rav says that we're talking about the purchaser that buys from the Sakrikan. He has to pay the original owner a quarter, either. Now, a quarter could be either a quarter in cash or it could be a quarter of the property. But let's say he pays $100 to the Sakrikan. All right. He has to give $25 to the original owner, or he has to give 25% of the property to the original owner. Okay. Now that's the opinion of Rav. Shmuel Amar Ravia B'Karka Shein Shlish B'Mais. Shmuel says no. Either you give, no, you don't have a choice. It's not a choice here. What you're really doing is you're doing a quarter of the property, which is a third of the value. Now let's see what's going on. It says, what's the machlek? Mar savar naki revia zavin, mar savar naki chumsha zavin. Question is, how much less is the thief selling these items? One opinion says he's selling it for a quarter less. So a quarter less, let's say like this, the property is really worth 100 and he's selling it for 75. So he's selling it for 75. So he has to give a third.
Oh, what he sold it for. A third of 75 is 45.
A third of 75, which is Shlish B'Mais. That would be Shmuel's opinion. But that value, 25, is really a quarter of the property because the property's real value is 100. So it's a quarter of the property, which is a third of the money that he paid.
Right.
Okay, that's why it's getting confusing. The other opinion says that he sells it for a quarter less, not a third less. He sells it for a quarter less, which means that the real property, let's say in our case, talking about that the property was worth, well, let's change it, make it easier. The property is worth 125. He sells it for 100. So then that's the opinion that says that it's a quarter of the property, a quarter of the money that he paid, which is 25. Is that a quarter of the property?
A quarter of 125?
No.
Quarter of
1 second.
100.
The property is worth, what does he say? He says either a quarter of the money or a quarter of the property. Let's just see this again.
If it was worth 100 and you bought it for 80, kind of thing.
Yeah, that could work. Let me see. I read this in the Rashi. Let me see how he did it. He said he pays a mana. A mana is 100. Okay. We're going according to Rav. It says he pays 100. He has to give a quarter, either from the property itself or a quarter, which is
1/5. Which is 20%.
Yeah, that's a fifth. And how does that, and how much property does he give? He gives, we said, a quarter of the property. But a quarter of the property, if what's the real value of the property? Real value of the property is 125. Is that what we're saying?
I think it's either with 100, right? So
Okay, let's
he
do it
bought
to
it
100.
for he bought it for 80. So a quarter of 80 would be 20. And that's 1/5 of the value of the property, which is 100.
Oh. So he could either pay 20, or he can give a quarter of the property.
A fifth of the property.
Oh, a fifth, and that's what we said? No, but we didn't say that. According to Rob, he gives either a quarter of the property or a quarter of the money. Yeah, how does he give a quarter of the property? Rob says that he buys it for a fifth less. So therefore, he gives him a quarter of a mana or a fifth of the property, which is a fifth of the property is a quarter of the mana, because he says the property was bought for a mana. Oh, that's it. He says the property, according to him, was paid for a mana, but was really worth 125. So he says either he gives a quarter of the money, which is 25, or he gives a quarter of the property, which is 25. The only problem is a quarter of the property is not going to be the full, a quarter of the property is going to be more than 20, a quarter. Yeah, it's going to be a quarter of 125. Okay, let's go further. Let's see. I'm not sure how this works. The Gemara was going to ask a question, then we'll get back to it. Gemara says, Meisvei. Zu Mishnah Rishayna. This is the first Mishnah. That means that's what the original teaching was, that the sale is not valid. However, but the Bezdin afterwards that came up after that first Mishnah, they changed the rule, and they said that if someone purchases from the Sekrikan, he has to give to the original owner a quarter. We had Bailam al Yaina, and the hand of the owner is on the top, which means Ratzu Bekarka Naitan, Ratzu B'Maislaitan. He can choose if he wants a quarter money or a quarter of the property. Masai, when do we say that this applies? Does Manshin Biad Likach, that he doesn't have the means to buy it back, the entire property from the Sekrikan? But if he could buy it back, then he buys it before everyone else gets first choice to get his own property back. And Rabbi Haishiv Bezdin Benimno, obviously, he's going to buy it back if the guy's going to end up in court. So we're going to be able to extract the money because it was stolen. We're talking about just to get the property before that court case. Rabbi Yosef Bezdin, Rabbi set up a Bezdin that decided that if someone comes after 12 months that the robber had it, then whoever purchased it is acquired it. I guess the svara is that it was impossible to keep track of these properties, who the original owner was, because there was so much extortion. Yeah, that must be why they instituted this.
The prices are changing, so he's trying to reconstruct the historical price that got paid a year ago.
Right. But we're going to give the original owner, even according to this, we're going to give the original owner a quarter of the property or a quarter of the money. Now, this is going to be a question on Shmuel, because Shmuel said you give a third of the money, a quarter of the property. Ravashi says, Kitani he gives an interesting answer. He says, when we said that it's a quarter of the property, quarter of the property is fine. A quarter of the money is what's switching over here. So he paid 75 for something that was worth 100. So why does it say he gives a quarter? It should be, he has to give him 25, that's a third. It says it gives a quarter. He says, no, it's a quarter after he pays the guy the other 25. Then we look at the whole sum. We say, well, the 25 is a quarter of the full sum that he paid, which is now 100. Because 75 to him and 25 to him makes 100. A quarter of it went to the original owner. That's the way they put it. Okay, now let me go back and look at that. According to Shmuel, we said that he buys it for 1/5 less. So it was sold for 120. It was the value was 125. He sells it for 100. Sells it for 100. He needs to give a quarter to the original owner
Of the sold price?
of the real value
No.
of the sold price
Which is 100.
which is now which is 100. So which is really adds up to 125. And then, or he can give a third of the property. The third of the property is not going to be. So 1 second. What he really bought. He really bought for 100. It's not a third of the property.
Isn't Shmuel just your first explanation that he bought it for, it was worth 100, he bought it for 75?
Oh, okay.
And then Rav is the one that says 1/5 and 1/4.
Right. I think so.
Yeah.
1 second. According to Rav, it's either a quarter or a quarter. So how much less does he buy it for? He buys it a fifth less or a quarter less.
A fifth less.
A fifth.
Fifth less. That's $20. That's 80.
So he pays 80. So how does he pay him a quarter?
He pays him a quarter of 80, which is 20.
Oh, that's what you
Quarter of
mean.
80
Oh,
is
okay. Okay, a quarter of what he paid, which is 20, and or a quarter of the property, which is also 20. Quarter, no.
Fifth of
quarter
the property.
How much of the property?
A fifth.
20 over 100.
No, but he doesn't say he gives a fifth of the property. He says he gives a quarter of the property.
Umar Saben Chumshas Zvain.
Yeah, but look at the beginning of the words of Rav. Amar Rav, Ravia Bakarka, Ravia B'mais.
Oh, I'm looking at the second. Oh, I'm looking at the second part. Umar Savar. Okay, the first part. Okay, sorry.
Let's do this Rashi inside. You want to take a look at this Rashi. Amar Rav, Ravia Bakarka, Ravia B'mais. Either he gives a quarter of the money that he gave to the thief. He gives that to the owner. Or he gives property that's the value of a quarter. So if he buys something for 100, nice and later money, either he gives him $25. Or he gives him, oh, that's what it means. Or he gives him the value of property, which is the value of a quarter. Because the original property was really, the value was 125. No. But yeah, the original property was 125. But he only pays 100 because he bought it for a quarter less. So now either he gives him a quarter of the money that he pays, gives the original owner, or he gives him a quarter of the property, or he gives him, oh, that's what he's doing. He gives him the value of property that's worth a quarter, which is the part of the property that he didn't really purchase because he paid less. If that's what the owners want. He bought something that was worth 5, he paid only 4. Because he buys from the Sukrikan with a mana, a property that was worth 5 quarters. Worth 5 quarters. Okay. And Shmuel says Ravia Karkatzmai. I think Shmuel we got. Shmuel says a quarter of the property, nice and light, a shlish mana, no. Or a third of a mana. Why? The Savar Shmuel Naki Rivas oven. Shmuel holds that you minus a quarter from the sale, that he sells it for less than a quarter less. Shava Arba, something that was worth 4, which is 100. Lakach B'shalish, he bought it for 75. This field that he pays 100 was really worth this field, Shava Arba, Lakach B'shalish. The field that he pays 75, so there's Lakach B'mana, Shava Arba Shlishi Mana.
So the coin has a slight detail here that kind of explains Rav. He said a fourth in money, like that the Mishnah is referring to. Rav, both things are talking about the same thing. So either he pays a fourth of the value of the property, or a fourth of the value of the property in money.
Right. Right. So that helps Rav. That helps Rav. It's not really a fourth of the property, it's a fourth of the value of the money, just converted into property. Okay.
Yeah.
And in Shmuel, it's I think we got, if it's he pays 75 for something that's worth 100, so he's really paying a quarter less than its value, which is so he gives either a quarter of, if he gives a quarter of the property, it gives a quarter of the property, that's exactly what he didn't pay for. He didn't pay for a quarter of the property, so that's fine. It's a quarter of the property or a third of the money that he paid, which is 25. Okay, that's how that will work.
So he doesn't really save by dealing with this guy because he really paid the full value of the
Right.
thief.
Right.
So
Okay. Nice complicated way of explaining it. It's something that comes out just
Is that what flipping property is today? Except it's not under pressure. It might be like bulldozer is going to bulldoze your house. So you might as well sell it to me quickly. So he sells it for 50 because he's just happy to get rid of it or he's afraid. Guy flips it for 200. Now the court says got to give the original guy some money back.
Sounds similar. It sounds like the same thing.
That's normal Florida business. Homestead anyway.
They have a nice term, is like when the government first tries to negotiate with the owner, right, and tells them, "Oh, look, I'll offer you this much and this much," and then they eventually, if they really want the property, they do the whole eminent domain. They're like, "Oh, look, we're gonna pay you this much."
That takes
When
a
they
little
do
bit of
eminent domain, did they pay you well or they just cheap? How do they judge that price? Zillow. Okay. Amar Rav says, "Ana havi b'minyana debei Rebbe." Rav says, "We're on top of the test." I was in this, like Bezdin, sort of, that when Rebbe made this institution, that they're going to allow the sale to be a good sale. He just has to pay the original owner. He says, I was there. I was one of the people. And they actually started counting from me when they said, who agrees to this? All in favor, say aye. So Rav was the first to say aye. Rav was there. Okay. Banan Tanan, 1 second, but we have a Mishnah, Dini Mamanas Vataris Vatumas Maskilim and Agadol. When it comes to monetary laws, when it comes to purity laws or impurity, you don't start from the from the side, from the lowest student. How could Rav have answered first? You start from the greatest. It's only when it comes to death penalty where you start from the side, from the low. Who's supposed to give his opinion first? There's a problem with the leader of the court, the head of the court, saying his opinion first, because everyone else is going to be influenced by that. So they would really start from the lowest. But that wasn't always true. That wasn't by laws of purity or impurity. They would start from the highest in the court. So Amar Rabba Breder Rav Vitim Rabhil Breder Ravalas. Shani Minyana de Rabbi the Kula Minyana Menatzad have a masculine. By Rabbi, they always started from the side. That's how it was by Rabbi. Okay. Now, once we mentioned this Rabba Breder Rava Vitim Rabhil Breder Ravalas, now we throw in another point over here. It says another thing that he said. V'amar Rabba Breder Rava Vitim Rabhil Breder Ravalas Moshe Bad Rabbi Lematzina Teragdula b'Makom Echad. From Moshe's days until Rabbi, we did not find anyone that has Torah and wealth in the same person. Rabbi Huda Anasi. Rabbi Huda Anasi is Rabbi. The Gemara says, "Well, you didn't have a Yeshua, but what about Yeshua? The leader after Moshe Rabbeinu." It says, no, he wasn't the only one that was great. There was someone else there that was great, and that means that he wasn't like necessarily the greatest because he had to share it with Elazar. Haba Elazar. Elazar the Kohen Gadol was there. It says Haba Elazar, but what about after Yeshua passed away? So then Elazar was there. He must have been the wealthiest and the greatest. It says Haba Pinchas. Well, Pinchas was alive. That was his son. Haba Pinchas. What about after Elazar passed away? Pinchas was there. It says Haba Zakanim. You had the Shaftim were there. They were also great. Haba Shaul. But what about Shaul? Wasn't he the greatest? That was a head taller than everyone. Haba Shmuel. Shmuel was around. Hanach Nafshi, but Shmuel passed away before Shaul passed away. Then Shaul would have been the greatest. It says, well, Kulish and Kamrina, we're talking about someone that was his entire life was wealthy and great. Avi David, what about David? Well, David had Avi Ira HaYe'iri. There was another sage over there, Ira HaYe'iri. But Nach Nafshi, but he passed away. It says Kulish Anabina, but we're looking for someone that his entire life was greatness and wealth was together. Avi Shloima, what about Shloima? Wasn't he wealthy and also wise? Great in Torah. Avi Shimei ben Gera, but Shimei ben Gera, that was his teacher. He was around. It says Hava Katle, but he had him killed. The whole story, he had him killed. He says Kulish Anakamrin, but we're talking about his entire life. Would Shloima have his entire life just have been like that? Avi Chizkiah, what about Chizkiah? It says no, Hava Shevna, but Shevna was there. But Shevna was killed by Sancherib, right? It says no. Kuluk Shani Kamrin, we're talking about their entire life. What about Havi Ezra? How far are we supposed to go? Yeah, we're supposed to go until Rebbe. But what about Ezra? It says, well, Havi Nehemiah ben Chachilai. Nehemiah was around, so he wasn't just the only great one in this. Amar Rav Acha Brei Rava, Afani Yomer. Rav Acha Brei Rava says, I have another statement here. Mimais Rebbe vad Ravashi lemetzin terig dil b'makam echad. What about? I have another statement that from Rebbe's days until the days of Rav Ashi, from the time of the Mishnah till the conclusion of the Gemara, there was no one that was so great that had Torah and wealth together. It says, there wasn't. Huna bar Nassan. What about Huna bar Nassan? He was very wealthy, and he also was a sage. So Shani Huna bar Nassan, the maker of Habikayef Rav Ashi, he was still, he had to answer to Rav Ashi. He wasn't as great as Rav Ashi. Okay. We have a new Mishnah.
Why did they do all this?
I'm not sure. It came in because the rabbi that said this thing that we mentioned before.
They made their money by real estate, or no,
the rabbi that spoke before that he was answering up why we started from Rav, why we started the voting from the side. He also said who was great, who had put things together. Cheirish. When it comes to a deaf mute, Reimez Venirmas, he could use his hands or his head to to make a deal. He's a deaf mute, but he can still sign language, right? Ben Beseir says, "Kaifetz v'nikbats b'metaltlin." When it comes to selling personality, he could make symbols with his lips. He can't speak, but he can make symbols. Ha'pa'utais, how do they translate pa'utais? Children? Young children. Mekhan mekach, memkaran mecher b'metaltlin. What they purchase is purchased, what they sold is sold when it comes to movable property. Personality. The reason why that was instituted was that in case they don't have food, they should be able to make small sales to be able to get food. Rav Nachman says, "Machlekes b'metaltlin," this machlekes between Ben Beseira that says that he can make symbols with his lips, and the Tanakama that says he makes symbols with his hands or his head. That's what we're talking about. Metaltlin, that's talking about personality. Apple begittin. Well, when it comes to giving a get, let's say he wants to divorce his wife, the Mishnah says, how is he going to divorce his wife if he can't talk? They say he's going to use sign language. Everyone agrees that he uses the regular sign language with his hands or head. That's how he married her. That's how he divorces her. The Gemara says, Pshita, what's Rav Nachman telling me? It says clearly in the Mishnah that that's only regarding movable objects. That we have this rule where they do, where Rav Kana says that he can make symbols with his lips. Could have thought also metaltlin, not only metaltlin, not only personality, but also personality. That's what they call it. Kamash Malan, that it's only personality is when he can make symbols with his lips. Ikadami, there are those that had this Gemara a little different. Amar Rav Nachman says, "Machlekes b'metaltlin kach machlekes b'gittin." It's exactly the opposite. He says the machlekes by movable property, it also applies to Gittin. The Gemara says, "Vanan b'metaltlin tanan," but we said that it applies also to. We said that it applies only to metaltlin. So the Gemara answers, "Ema af metaltlin." We didn't mean only; we meant also. How do we go? How does the halacha go like? I don't have it over here. It's like the first version or the second version. I think there's a rule somewhere that it always goes with the second version. Do we go like a ikadamri? Do you have any note in that in the Quran? Yes. No, but the question now would be about a get. Wouldn't be about money. Okay. Maybe okay, I'm not sure. Haputas mekhan mekach memkaran memkar the metaltlin. Young children, they can make a sale and they can purchase and they could sell. Rad kama, until how old does this apply? What are we talking about? Under 6 or 7? Or are we talking about over 6 or 7? Machri Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yitzchak Brei. Rav Yehuda showed to Rabbi Yitzchak's son Kibar Shish Kibar Sheva. Once he's 6 or 7. Now I guess that means that's when he's allowed to make these sales, not younger than that. Yeah. It must mean when once they reach that age, then it's the rabbis accepted it. It's considered a sale. Right. Right. So the first opinion here was 6 or 7. Rav Kana Amar Kvar Shev Kvar Tamni. Rav Kana says like the age of 7, the age of 8. There's a brisa that says it's like the age of 9 or 10. That's when these sales would be valid. Depends how precocious he is. So it's not really something that's set, like, oh, show me your birth certificate. It's really how intelligent he is. Time am I?
So I guess that the younger ages, if it's a girl.
You really have that in your
So
notes?
there's the first number in each of these opinions applies to a girl, and the second to a boy, and from Nimkosi Yosef, sounds Japanese.
Nimuke Yosef?
Sounds Japanese.
Yitzi's telling me from the Nimuke Yosef that's quoted in the art scroll that when it says 6 or 7, the 6 is referring to a girl and the 7 is referring to a boy. And by all of these numbers, there's 2 numbers like this or like that. The girl is always a year ahead, more mature. The Chiddush is that it's only a year. Right? Time of my. Someone said a bit surprised that Rivka, 3 years old, was going to get the water. It's like you don't have any girls in the house. They're serving tea to the guests at 3 years old. They're fine. You only have boys. You know, the boys at 25, they're still like, how do I boil water? Yeah, okay. So time of my. What's the reason why they instituted this? That their sale usually what a child does is nothing. So why did they institute that the sale is good? Because they want him to survive. He may need to purchase things and this, and he doesn't have, and he has to start doing business. So they do business in the school, in the schoolyard. Yeah, that's right. They hide it in the backpacks and lockers. Vayomer lasher ala maltasa hitzi levush l'chol oivdei habal. He said to the person that was standing on the maltasa, take out clothing to all those that worship Baal. Do you have any reference to what this is talking about? They don't tell you anything? Okay, so it says the Gemara asks, my maltasa, what maltacha? What is this maltacha? I'm Rabbi Yaakov, I'm Rabbi Yechon, Davar Nilmal V'Nimtach. We're talking about something that is stretched. It's softened and stretched. Like Nimlal is softened and stretched. Kasser Rabdimi, I'm Rabbi Yechanan. When Rabdimi came, we're talking what is soft and stretched? I think it's referring to flax or linen that you would you roll it like in your fingers, and that's how you spin it. Spin the cloth. Spin the cloth, the thread. Kasser Rabdimi, I'm Rabbi Yechanan. Shiger loy Bunayim ben Nunayim l'Rebbe. Bunayim, the son of Nunayim, sent to Rebbe Sivni v'chaimes, Sal Sila Umalmala, and I think what he's asking is, no, he's not asking. He's just saying what happened. That this wealthy person sent to Rebbe this type of clothing, 4 types of linen. Sivni v'chaimes, Sivni and chaimes. This is this very thin material. Kam goza upalgadam goza. When you folded it up so small that it was the size of a. It wasn't larger than the size of a nut and a half. A nut and a half. That's a pistachio. Who goes as a pistachio? Maybe the next one. What's the next one? Salsalamala, Capistica, Upalgi de Pistica. That's probably a pistachio. That sounds.
Yeah, sorry.
That's pistachio. The size of a pistachio nut. Isn't that interesting? If that's pistachio, do the pigs eat pistachio? Rashi says galant, sheichlim chazirim. What do you have in the article? What do they call it?
You ever read that pigs were rich because they eat everything?
Oh.
So I went and thought.
Yeah, it's hard to say that this is pig's food. They eat the garbage, right? I'm looking if this is, well, pistica is a, do you have pistachio? Acorns, okay. And in the French, Rashi says galant. I don't know, in the back of these Gemaras, there was something called Laze Rashi in it. Oh, Matargin. And he says, sometimes he tells you what it is, Nuntes. Eichelen. I guess in Yiddish, maybe that's acorns. Okay. My Malmala, why is it called Malmala? It says Davar Nimla v'Nimtach. It's something that's softened and stretched. V'tusanat kama. When you're talking about children that are selling, what would be considered a mekach tois? What would be considered overcharging or undercharging and all of that? How does that work? With a regular sale, we know what it is. It's always a sixth of the item. That would make the sale. There was a mistake in the sale. It was more than a sixth. So then the sale would be nullified. They could get his money back or whatever. So how does it work with the children? So it says, I'm Rabbi Yenim Zir, exactly the same thing. It works with a sixth of the value. Boy Abaya says, Matanasai Mai. Now, you only explain that this should work because he needs income, he needs food, so he can make a sale. What about if he wants to give a gift? Is his gift considered a gift? Rabbi Yeimar Amar Ein Matanasa Matana. Rabbi Yeimar says it's not a good gift. Mar Baravashi Matanasa Matana. Mar Baravashi says he can give a gift. They messed this up and they said it the wrong way to Rav Mordechai. They said that Mar Baravashi says that it's not a good gift. Amar Lei, so Rav Mordechai says, Zilu Amar Labar Mar. They should go tell Mar Baravashi. Lavachi Aviyovda wasn't there a story? Mar Chad Kari Arav Chad Kari Adag is trying to remind them when this took place that the Ravashi had 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot on the ladder. We asked him, what about a gift? Could a child make a gift? That he could make a gift. All of those are considered gifts. I have a question. Why do we make such a big deal on Sukkot about the child giving it if the child could give a gift?
Oh. It's a few bucks.
Is this only if he's an orphan? How does this work? Why is this only by? How come we don't?
A lulav.
Why? Yeah. Why by the lulav? Does the child need to have his own? If the child could give a gift,
You got to read a little bit further, Neila. It tells you that the only reason he gives a gift is because he needs to make a living.
now. See, he doesn't get money from the gift, right? That's a gift. So, but for some reason, we're saying that the gift, it applies as well to a gift. Because whatever type of business he has, sometimes in business you have to give gifts also. So, but once they said that his gift is considered a gift, then it should be a gift. Yeah, Chaim. It's not. Once they say that his business is good, then they also said that his giving gifts is also because in business you also have to sometimes give a gift and like that you have to do that. So if they're saying that it's considered really a gift, so
This is a takana. You're talking about a mitzvah midoraisa. You can't take a takana and say that you're able to do a mitzvah midoraisa because we made a takana. It's like you're stretching it too much. A mitzvah midoraisa, you need to own it. Lakachta lachem, you know.
My only question on that would be that so the guy buys something from a child, okay? The child, or he sells something to the child gives him money. Then the guy takes the coin that he receives from the child. He goes and he marries a woman with that coin. Is he married? I think yes. I think even though it was a kinyan midirabanan, but I think he acquires it. I think he ends up owning it, like biblically.
Did he stole it?
So that's why I'm not sure. No, I'm talking about, we're saying over here that a child can do business. So I'm just asking, so why did we make a big deal by the lulav? That he has to own his own lulav because you give it to him, he can't give it back. I'm not sure. Okay, next Gemara, Eila Dvarim, Amru Mipnei Darkei Shalom. The following was said because of, how do they translate Darkei Shalom in your things? Because of the increased peace?
Yes.
That's it, just increase peace? For harmony. Okay, what is that? Well, Kayin Kari Rishon Vachrav Levi Vachrav Yisrael Mipnei Darkei Shalom. They wanted to set this up. There shouldn't be any fights. You just have a system. Kayin goes first, the afterwards the Levi, afterwards Yisrael. And now we don't have to fight. We already have it already worked out. Ma'arvin b'bayis yashim pnei darkei shalom. When it comes to making an erev, where do you keep the erev and whose house you're going to keep? You know, the erev is some food that was put into a house in the courtyard. A bunch of people in a courtyard, they have to put food together that it should be considered one home. So whose house would it go? It's always in the old house. Wherever you kept it last, that's where you keep it now. Remember someone asking the Rebbe which mile should use. The Rebbe said, who did you use for the last one? So anyway. When you start switching, then people start getting insulted. So no, that's the guy I used. What do you want from me? Okay.
Try to get rid of your
You have to tell them I'm doing it myself.
Right.
And then you find someone else who said it was too hard. So why? Because you switched
Very
oh.
butterflies came up and cut the whole thing back. I don't appreciate those kind of things.
What do they know? They have these machines. My brother has in these bushes in his house in Coconut. Okay, in the bushes is a soursop tree, but these guys don't know what they're doing. They cut it all, the whole thing like down to the bush level. It's like hidden in there. So you got to tell the guy, leave this thing. Anyway, you know, they have the machines, they just. Barshu Karev le'ama mismali rishon pnei darkei shalom. Talking about a stream that has, it's coming downhill, and there's people uphill and downhill, and they have these reservoirs where they could store some of that water. So the higher up you are, that you get the choice to store that water first. Okay, when the way they would store the water was they would have to block off the dam, the stream, so that it would overflow and it would end up going into that reservoir. And then they would open it up after the reservoir was full. But who was allowed to do that? That was the first was allowed to do that was the higher up they are on the river. And that was set up. If there's these nets set up that catch birds or wild animals or fish, you're not allowed to go fish into that net, even though it's sitting there and the owner hasn't come and taken it yet. You can't go and take out of there. But and the reason is because of Darkei Shalom. Rabbi Yisrael says, no, that's not Darkei Shalom. That's not just for harmony. That's stealing. If a child finds something, or a cherish or an imbecile, they find something, you can't take it from them because it's not increasing peace. Rabbi Yisrael says no, it's actually stealing to take it from them. I'm not sure why it's an ani. It must be an olive tree that's from that's in Hefker. He's going up on an olive tree. The way, they harvest the olives, they shake the tree, they bang branches or something. Now what they do is they have this machine that drives up to the tree and like wiggles it, shakes it. And they have this net that goes under the canopy, just catches all the olives. They shake the tree and all the olives come falling in.
The halacha derived from year of a Kohen being first.
Yeah, but the Gemara is going to discuss. We made it look like it's just a rabbinic institution.
Yeah.
So we'll see soon that's not so simple. So what happens when the olives fall on the floor and there's a guy up in the tree that's shaking the branches? So you're not supposed to take what falls down because that's the guy in the tree. That's what he's doing. You can't just go ahead and say, well, you never touched it yet. I got it first. No. Rabbi Yossi says, Gezel Gomer, Rabbi Yossi Gezel Gomer. That's you actually stealing if you take it. You can't protest against the non-Jew that's coming to take the things that are given to the poor. Also, pay darki shalom because you don't cause fights about that. Okay, minani mili. Where do we know this from? That the Kayan gets the aliyah first. Amar Rav Masna, Rav Matana maybe. The Amar Kra says in the pasuk it's very common for Rav Masna to quote psukim. The Amar Kra, the pasuk says V'yichtav Moshe satira zeis v'yitna l'kayanim b'nei Levi. Moshe wrote down this Torah and he gave it to the Kayanim, the sons of Levi. I don't know that the Kayanim are the sons of Levi. What it means is that the Kayan goes first and then Levi. That's what it was. That pasuk that's telling me Kayanim, the sons of Levi, that's coming to teach me that really Kayanim come first. That's what it's coming. Kayanim and then B'nai Levi. Okay. Rav Yitzchak Nafcha, Amar Rav Yitzchak Nafcha says, Mehacha, he has another pasuk. V'nikshua Kayanim b'nei Levi. The Kayanim, the son of Levi, come close. Atu anan layadina the Kayanim b'nei Levi. Or don't I know that the Kayanim are sons of Levi? Levi was the grandfather. That says, well, Elakayim Beresha v'Hadar Levi. What it means to say is that first the Kayan comes and then the Levi comes. Rav Ashi Amar Mehacha, Rav Ashi has b'nei Amram Aaron and Moshe v'Yavdel Aaron la'Ktishay Kodesh Kadashim. The sons of Aaron is Aaron, and the sons of Amram is Aaron and Moshe, and Aaron was separated to do the Holy of Holies. It says you have to make the Kayan holy, and you make him holy with everything of holiness. He always comes first. What does that mean? For everything that's holy, he opens up he does the Torah reading first. He speaks first. He says the blessings first. He's at the meal, and he takes the first portion. He gets everything first. Amli Abayla Rav Yosef. Abai says to Rav Yosef, I have a kasha. Abai says, the Mishnah says that it's to increase harmony. There I see. You just quoted a bunch of psukim. It's not for harmony. Amalei. So he responded, it's from the Torah, and it's because of to increase harmony, because the whole Torah is to increase harmony. Elam Rabaya, rather Rabaya says, L'kidamar. Why do I need an Elam Rabaya? Oh, Abaya says that what does the Mishnah mean when it says Darkei Shalom? Does that mean that he's not accepting the answer of Rabbi Yosef? I don't know.
Or he's limiting it to a specific.
Where it would only be rabbinic. Okay. The Tanya was taught in the Brisa. If there's two people eating, so one person should not start before the other person. Let's say they go to the restaurant or something, and they order food, and they're gonna order it together. One person starts taking first, so then they're not gonna be able to split the bill properly. He'll start taking it. That's not the way. So you're supposed to wait together to show what you're splitting. However, if there's 3 people, you don't have to wait for the last person. There's already 2 people there that control that. Who places the other tchila? The one that says the bracha, he's the one that eats first. Beitzeya is the one that says the hamaitzi. Rashi says that he dips the bread. He takes the first food as well. That's basically what that means. Cover the rabbi, but if he wants to give honor to his teacher, to someone that's greater than him, he's allowed to do that. And the master taught on this. That's only by a meal. Have a basic necessary, but not in shul, because that could come to fights. In other words, in shul, if he wants to say that you should get the aliyah first, and really the kohen goes first, right? So you shouldn't give it to someone else. Doesn't give honor to the Levi or to the Yisrael, because then once you start to mess with this, then it could cause fights.
What about shuls where, because we seem not to do this, where Cohen might go out, so he's not present, so he's essentially causing someone else to get this away.
Right. It's interesting because some people say, let him be Michael, but from this Gemara, it looks like that he's not supposed to be Michael. Famous done halacha, right? That's what we're asking. Yeah, from the Gemara, it looks like he's not allowed. Does it say in your halacha thing over there?
Or is that what they mean with Meidach?
Oh, so 1 second. Let's go further. Let's see. It says, Amar of Masna Hada Amrit, basic necessary. This you said that he's not supposed to give it over to someone in shul. That's only on Shabbos and Yom Tov when there's a lot of people there. But on Monday or Thursday, that's not a problem. It says, really? Aini. But Rav Huna Kari Bekani b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov. They gave it to Rav Huna, and it was Shabbos and Yom Tov. And Rav Huna wasn't a Kayan. Rav Huna was a Yisrael.
But he was Rav Huna.
So the Gemara says, Shani Rav Huna is different. Even the great Kayanim of Eretz Yisrael, which is Rabami and Rabasi, they had to answer to Rav Huna. He was so great. So that's different. Ramesha told me a joke yesterday about, by the Svardim when you get an aliyah. So you have to read also. They call you up, you have to read. Anyway, there was an Ashkenazi rabbi that in the Svardim show, they called him up. And he says the bracha, and they're like, no, you have to read. He didn't know it. It's like he knows how to read the Torah, but he didn't prepare. It wasn't. Anyway, he was very embarrassed. A while later, it's going back to the same show. He says, I'm going to prepare. You may give me this aliyah. So he was a kohen. So he prepares. We call him up, and he did such a beautiful job. He was so happy. Then there was no Levi in the show.
Oh.
Anyway, that's the story. Okay. Okay, so Amar Abaya. Naktina and Abaya says,
It's very good.
Okay.
You said it over well.
Okay, Ishikaya. I heard it from Maisha, Shem Amr. Amar Abaya Naktinan, we've established Ein Shem Kayan, that if there's no Kayan there, Nesparda Chavila, you don't have to go in any order. You don't have to give the Levi, no Kayan, anyone can get. Amar Abaya says Naktinan, Ein Shem Levi, that if there's no Levi, then Kaira Kayan, then the Kayan has to get a second Aliyah, because the Kayan goes twice. Aini, is that really so? There's a problem with the Kayan going twice. If you called up another Kayan after the first Kayan, that's problematic because it looks like the first Kayan wasn't the real Kayan. Levi Acha Levi La Yikra also shouldn't read Mishum Mishum pegam shneim, because it makes them both look bad, but they're both not good. It says ki kamrin and baisa kayan. So the Gemara answers that's not a problem, because what we're talking about, not that you're calling up another kayan, not that you're calling up another kayan, you're calling up the same kayan again. It's not like you're saying that, by the way, the first kayan, we called him up, we just heard that he wasn't really a kayan, we're going to call up someone else. But you're not doing that. What you're doing is you're calling up the first kayan, asking him to say the brachas again to get a new aliyah. That's not a problem. It doesn't look like he wasn't a kayan. You're giving him another aliyah. The Gemara, it was interesting quote over here. He says that if a Levi gets called up after another Levi, it looks like they're both not Leviim. So Damri, what's the reason? Levi, one of them isn't a Levi. Kayan acher kayan nami. Amri chad minay lav kayanu.
Or Chaim mentions that it's a shul of only Kohanim. Then each Kohen, every different Kohen gets an aliyah, because you would never think you're discrediting the first one.
Very good.
It's interesting.
Very good.
What about if there's
Dr. Stein's mentioning that there's it must be that it means the Shulchan Aruch, or Chaim, or Hachaim, or Orach. Orachaim, yeah. So the Shulchan Aruch says that if they're all Kayanim, then it's not a problem, because it doesn't look like you're discrediting one Kayan.
What if they're all gospel?
A minion of women, they don't read the Torah usually. No. The Megillah they could read, but they don't need a minion for that. Yeah.
Aren't there places? I mean, it might not be Lubavitch where solely women and young actually.
I don't think so. I never heard of that. I only heard from Megillah. I don't think they do. There's no such thing. Really? In Orthodox circles?
By Stern, I mean, back in my days, the girls' college, I may be wrong, I was told by someone that they had their own menu. There were no men around, and that's actually something. But
I don't remember
I'm
that.
going back 50 years.
I'm not sure.
Wrong.
You're hanging out in interesting circles.
I wasn't hanging out there. I just heard someone mention it.
Okay.
It's 150 blocks away. Give me a break.
It's one train.
We knew that. They thought they were smart. You just go on the deep.
Okay. So the question is, which restaurants did they go? Did you always go to restaurants up or down in the south or in the north?
There weren't that many restaurants.
Okay.
Oh, down there.
Okay. So they can say that one of them maybe isn't a real kayan. It says no. By the kayanim was a different case. We know that he's a kayan. So the Gemara says, 1 second. You're trying to make a contrast between a kayan and a Levi. You have to do that not by changing the case. You have to keep with the case the same, and then say a kayan is different than a Levi. But so if you're telling me that by the Levi we know that we know that this one is really a Levi. I'm sorry, by the kayan, you know that this one is really a kayan. So then that must be the same case by the Levi if you're telling me a contrast. So it says, Ela Amri Mamzeras in Asina Nasiv Pasli Lazare. What's the issue with the Levi? If a Levi gets called up after another Levi, the issue is like this. Maybe the father of the Levi is a mamzer, or the father marries a mamzeres, not is a mamzer, married a mamzeres. That means that the child, although the child is a Levi, but he's a mamzeres, he's really like pugum, there's like a problem there. So they didn't want to give him the aliyah, they gave it to someone else. The Gemara says, well, if that's what you're telling me, then hachinami amri grushay chalutza nasib. Maybe the kayan also married someone that he wasn't supposed to marry, and v'achlei lazari. And he ruined the kedusha. The child's not really a kayan. Same problem. The Gemara says, 1 second. Safe, Levi Mika Havre. By the Levi, we said you can't call up two Leviim, one after another. By the Levi, he's really a Levi. People are going to say, yeah, you know that Levi? He's also a Mamzer. That doesn't change him from being a Levi. But you said you can't call up a Kayan after a Kayan. What do you mean? It's not a Kayan. If his mother was a Grusha, a divorcee, then the child's not a Kayan. Even though the father's a Kayan. He becomes a Chal, he's not a Kayan at all. The Megillah, to read the Megillah, yes.
Is a halal a Levi?
It has no effect on a Levi. Challah.
There's a
There's
Kohen.
a Challah to become a Levi. No, it becomes nothing. It becomes a Yisrael. Not a nothing. It becomes a Yisrael. Yeah, because the Kayan, if he marries someone that he wasn't allowed to marry, the children lose the sanctity. And by a Levi, they don't really have that sanctity. A Levi doesn't have the sanctity. They don't lose it. They're still a Levi. Who are we concerned about? If the people that are sitting in the shul the whole time, you see that you're gonna call up. You see, you see how many people they're calling up? They're calling up 7 people. You're going to see that each aliyah was counted. What we're worried about is people that leave shul early. They're just going to see that they gave this guy an aliyah. They gave right after him another Levi. They gave him an aliyah. So I'm going to say, oh, they probably they're going to have to make another aliyah at the end. They're going to make 8 aliyahs. Okay. Shol Chalei, but he left early, so he doesn't know. Worried about that. It's interesting how we're worried. We make halachas because people leave shul early. Sholchale, I guess they're expecting a kiddush club. Sholchale b'nei Galila Rab Chelbai. The people of the Galil asked Rab Chelbai. Achareyan mi kairin. After the Kayan and the Levi, who gets called up? Le'avi biyadi. He didn't know the answer. Also, so he goes and he's going to ask Rabbi Yitzchak Nafta. Afterwards, you call up Talmid Chachamim that are appointed as officials over the community. Afterwards, you call up Talmid Chachamim that are worthy of being appointed officials. What does that mean? Someone that you can ask him any halacha and he knows the answer. But the children of such people. Afterwards, the heads of the community, the president, then goes everyone else. The Bnei Galil, same before we call them Bnei Galila. Now it's Bnei Galil, same thing. Reb Chelbai asked Reb Chelbai, "Ma likus b'chamashim b'beis hakneses b'tzibar?" They didn't have books, so when we talk about chamashim, we don't really mean chumash as a book. We mean a scroll. But we're talking about, let's say they had scrolls, a scroll for Bereshis, a scroll for Shmais.
Yeah, I read that in Rambam yesterday. There was an idea of having like a Torah scroll.
Right. Right. Maybe for children. What does the Rambam say it was for children?
Even if you had like a whole Torah scroll that had the whole Tanakh, it still wouldn't have the level of sanctity. Just Torah itself.
That's what it says. So he says, "Are you allowed to use a chumash?" The chumash would mean a scroll that only had one of the books of the 5 books. Chumash is a fifth of the Torah. It's divided by 5. Chumash. It's a fifth. Chumash.
Is this for Kriyas HaTorah?
For Kriyas HaTorah. Yeah. So Reb Chelba didn't know the answer. He goes to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafta just like before. Now here Rabbi Yitzchak Nafta doesn't know the answer. Also Shel Bein Midrashad. So he went to ask in the yeshiva. Pashtua, they answered, what Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmani said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. It's usually Rabbi Yonasan, and on the side I have Rabbi Yonasan. Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmani is usually quoting Rabbi Yonasan. But it's only usually because that's what we have in the text. But if my text is not, if it's interchangeable, then we don't even know what's usual. Okay, so Sefer Torah Shechasi Reachas and Karen Bay. If you have a full Sefer Torah, but it's missing one column, can't read from it. That's a good proof. Here, I'm not missing just one column. I'm missing 4 books. So you can't. Kumar says Veloihi. That's not so. Here you're missing the column from the book, maybe the book that you're reading. Here I'm not missing any column from the book that I have a complete book.
It's a safer with the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not. That's not a good answer. If I have one whole scroll, the whole Torah, and it's missing, so it's missing. But over here, I'm not sure if the Gemara means that it's missing from the part of the Torah that you're reading from, or if it's in general. Even if I'm reading in Bereshis in the last column of Devarim, remember, they do Achnasa Sefer Torah, they fill in the last column. Maybe they forgot to fill that in. So were you yaitza for Bereshis Shmos Vayikra Bamidbar? For Devarim, not for sure not. But were you yaitza for the other ones? Over here, it looks like not. It looks like not because the whole book is missing. But if it would just be a Bereshis, you would have cut it. Just have Bereshis. Cut Shema, then maybe that would be a complete Bereshis. Maybe that would be good.
It's not just the text. I think it's also the construction, parchment, like that.
Here we're talking about where everything else is correct. It's just that it's not the whole Torah. Rabba Rav Yosef Damar Tavayo, Rabba and Rav Yosef both said, "Ein Karen b'Chumashim b'Saknes mishum kavod tzibur." You're not allowed to read from an individual book of the Torah in shul because it's not honorable for the congregation. Rabba Rav Yosef Damar Tavayo, High Sefer Haftartas L'Michbei b'Shabbos. You can't read from the Sefer of the Haftarahs on Shabbos. What does he want you to do? He wants you to take out a Navi and read from there, but not. You can't have just the just those pieces, just those segments. Like we have a Sefer Haftarahs. You can't read from that on Shabbos. My timer. What's the reason? Because it was. 1 second. Did I just jump? No. Because it wasn't supposed to be written down. Because you have to write a complete book. And here the Sefer Haftarahs was just the collection of the Haftarahs. It wasn't complete. In Rhode Island, there was a shul that had.
Comments?
Yeah, there was a shul that had.
There used to be a rabbi here. He had a whole collection.
Whole collection of them.
Torah scrolls.
There was a big excitement when one of the publishers put out the whole Tanakh in one volume, because even though it wasn't written on parchment, but they were going to read from the whole Tanakh. You had to find the place. It wasn't just like you find the parsha. You had to open up and find the place. No, we're talking about in the Haftarah. The Haftarah, which usually we just read the Haftarah from the back of the Chumash or from this Haftarah book that collects exactly what it says over here not to do.
The parsha.
Yeah.
It can't be from a Sefer, it has to be from a Sefer Torah.
Right, it has to be from a Sefer Torah. Yeah, that we've established. That's because of Kavod Tzibur. Now we're talking about the Haftarah book.
By the way, what if they didn't have it? What's their Shas HaTchak?
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to look that up.
Google it.
What's the reason that you can't use
It says about an esrog that if there's no esrog in town, that to use even something that's puzzle, so the children should know that there's a concept of an esrog. I'm not sure if there's no Sefer Torah in town if you use the puzzle Sefer Torah. I'm not sure. I don't remember if it says that. But
I'll look it up.
what's the reason for only using the Sefer Torah?
honor of the community. Disrespectful to the community to take out less than that. Looks like the community is poor.
So thank you, Hashem, that the guy didn't burn the Torah in Sweden.
What happened?
Sweden allowed, I was going to burn Sefer Torah in front of the Israelites. They went to court to try to stop him. And Sweden said no, it's okay. And then it was going to happen today. And the guy said, even though he was allowed to do it. It's like a miracle, like Israeli embassy, like everybody was pounding on Sweden. Like,
but who's this guy? Why is he significant?
Christian Islamist. They burned the Quran in Sweden.
Oh.
So to get back, not Jews, but
Those that burn books will later burn people, right? Just someone said
They'll be
Shakespeare.
that. Huh? Was Churchill? Mar Baravashi Amar Latotuli Nami Aser. If you're not allowed to write it, therefore you're not allowed to read from it. And so it's a muktzah as well. My time, something that you can't use on Shabbos becomes muktzah, like raw potatoes or something, it has no use. Flour, has no rock, has no use, it becomes muktzah. Not exactly like that. But the Gemara says, that's not true. You're allowed to move it, you're allowed to read from it. Because they would look in the book of Agarata, which was Torah Shabbal Peh, which also wasn't supposed to be written down. And they would look into the books of Agarata on Shabbos. Now, there was a problem. I think you weren't supposed to read certain things on Shabbos because you would end up missing the rabbi's drasha. But anyway, but it wasn't supposed to be written. But since we had to write it down, so then there's a time to do for God, which is to annul the Torah, which means that sometimes you do have to write down certain things. Here as well, not everyone can have a full book of the prophets, so they use a Sefer Agadata. Therefore, you should be allowed to read from it, because there are those places where they can't afford to have the whole Navi, so they just have a Sefer Agadata, so therefore you're allowed to read from it. Abaye asked Rabbah, what about writing a scroll for the children? It's not for the community to read from. You're just going to write a book of Bereshis. The children could read, or maybe just a parsha, right? He's going to be learning one parsha. So Tiboy Lamanda Amar Torah Megillah Nit. Tiboy Lamanda Amar Torah Chasuma Nit. To answer this question, you first has to define the question. In order to define the question, he goes back in history. He says, how was the Torah originally given to us in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, when we were in the desert? Did Moshe Rabbeinu give us, he spoke a certain thing, we got that section of the Torah, and then we got another section of the Torah a few days later, they kept getting more and more sections, and then they put it together at the end that we had a whole Torah. That's one option. The other option is that no, Moshe Rabbeinu was telling us the laws, but he wasn't giving us the parchment, the scroll. It was only at the end of his life, when we had all the teachings, that he wrote it down into a scroll. So if I would answer like this, I would keep it simple. I would have thought like this, that if Moshe Rabbeinu gave us pieces of scroll as it was going on, as it was being taught, then I would say that a Torah is acceptable, even if it's only in pieces. But if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't write it down, he only told it to us, and at the end he wrote it down, then I would say that only a Torah is acceptable if it's whole. Just like by Moshe Rabbeinu, he only gave us the complete Torah in a scroll form. But Abaye says, I'm going to ask you the question both according to this opinion, both according to that opinion. It's going to be a question on both. It goes like this. It's a question according to the opinion that says that it was written as a scroll. Why? Why is it a question? Because Kivan the Megillah Nitna Kaisvin, one option is that since the Torah was given as scrolls, so you're allowed to write scrolls for children. Or maybe Kivan Didbak Idbak. Once it was glued together, now it's too late. Now you can't change it. Now we have the whole Torah. Now you can't. Maybe everything switched. But I have a question even the other way. If the Torah was given to us completely at the end of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, given the Chasumin Etnein Kaisvin, that would tell me it's okay. So now you're not allowed to write for children, just one portion. Dilma, or maybe given or maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. But if it's not possible to do, you can't give every child a Sefer Torah. How did they study back then? They would have to have smaller scrolls that they would use. Couldn't give every child a Sefer Torah to learn from. So maybe it is acceptable. Amalei Ein Kaisvin, he said, no, you're not allowed to write scrolls, but just one parsha in it. Matam, what's the reason? Got to hear this. Fisha Ein Kaisvin, because just don't do it.
Whoa.
No, he doesn't give a reason.
Oh.
That's what he's accepted.
Very nice rating of it.
Right.
Just a
Instead
note.
of the just do it by the Nike. Just don't do it. Okay.
Rabbi, is it
Yeah.
that the Torah was given at the end of Moshe's life, according to not the Megillah opinion, the other one, or it was all given at Har Sinai?
No, I think it means at the
Okay.
end.
At
Asuma
the end.
would mean at the end, after everything was taught. Yeah,
Okay.
Rashi says at Seif Mem, Lachashem Kol Parshas Kulin. Everything was
Okay.
given orally until the end.
Rabbi, regarding the Torah reading
Non-kosher.
from a printed book, Rav Moshe Feinstein gave a tshuva. This is separate, but maybe we can infer from it, possibly, that the whole, when we see a lot of times the person who has not prepared the laning, so the what's his name, the Gabbai on the side, he's looking in the written Torah, and he's kind of prompting him.
Right.
So they say, like, that's okay. If I'm understanding right, that's okay because the Baal Korah is still reading from the Torah. But when there's no Gabbai doing it, and he's like going back and
Yeah,
forth,
it's a concern.
then
He's
it's
gonna
a
read. I'm
concern
familiar with that.
because he might be then reading by heart, having just read it there. So
You can't look back and forth.
he can't look back and forth, but he never answers the thing that can you therefore refer, but I think we can infer from that, obviously, if you can't go back and forth, then reading the first one is certainly not good.
By the way, my comments say Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, not Moshe Feinstein.
Now,
I was inferred.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. In the shul in Rhode Island, it's in Pawtucket, that's Massachusetts, right next to Providence. They had a Sefer Torah. Someone, I don't know who did it, but he put a plastic, like a lining over the Sefer Torah, was attached with paper clips. And on the plastic, he wrote in the Nakudas and the truck. And so when you read it, you're looking through the plastic.
Teleprompter.
You're looking through the plastic, and you're able to read the. You don't need to do this anyway. I think it was considered a b'diavad because they didn't have someone to read from the Torah, so they did this. But when you did Hagba on this thing, it was very difficult.
Oh, it was always.
And it was wet. Yeah. They
wow.
and I think they would.
Field trip to
I think they
Pawtucket.
would take it out in different parts of it and put it back in, like it was, big sections, like for different parshas. I think they would.
It's pretty ingenious.
Anyway,
I like to tell him. To see right through.
what you could do is, if you don't have to, if it wouldn't be Shabbos, you could put on like headphones of someone reading, and then you can.
Oh, that would be.
Because that you're not looking at another Sefer Torah. Esvei, the Gemara has a question. If you're really not allowed to write these little parshias, Hilani Amalka, we had this, I think in Yuma or something, that Queen Helene made this. What was that? Okay. So made this tablet to be able to write out of gold the Parsha of Saita. So you didn't have to take out a Sefer Torah and find the place. Obviously, you are allowed to write it. It wasn't really written over there. It was just written the first letter of every word. It was written in Rashi Tevot. So it says 1 second. Esvei. Describe. You have to write the portion, and then erase it in the ink. You have to put it into erase the ink in the water. You have to put it into the water. So the tablet was just there as what to copy of. It says he would look at the tablet and then he would write. Obviously, the words were there. It says Ema tablet, not what it said in the tablet, but like what it said in the tablet, which means because it was written in Rashi Tevis, and he would have to know what the word really was referring to. Where it says what was written in the tablet? It doesn't say Aleph Shin, Aleph Lamed Shin. It says im leish. It actually has the whole word there. Did he lay with her? Did he not lay with her? Right in that section of the Saita. So Achmaskin b'sirugin. Yeah, it had some of the words, but it also had like started with the words, and then it went to Rashi Tevas, and then it went back to words.
Is the pasuk that's written directly written in the Torah?
Yeah.
And it's therefore normally has to be copied from the Torah, just like when you copy.
Yeah.
You write this in the Torah.
Yeah, but what we said was that it's not copied from the Torah itself because they made a tablet that they could write it, they could copy it from this tablet. They didn't have to pull out the Sefer Torah.
So
we're
what
saying
did we
if
answer
you're-
before about just having the.
Right, that's exactly
It's
what
the
we're
same
saying.
question.
Exactly. That's what we're saying, that you, obviously you're allowed to have a scroll with just a small amount
Oh,
of the
so
Torah.
bring this as a
That's a proof.
raya.
That was a proof. That was a proof. So the Gemara says it's not a real proof because it wasn't really written in the words. It was just written Rashi Tevas.
So then it shouldn't have been good at all. Then he was writing it by heart.
No, but that was considered, it was considered that he's writing it from a text because it had the Rashi Tevas. I'm not sure what it said, that if you had to write it from.
Why did it even have to be Rashi Tevis? Why couldn't we already have a proof that he write it in gold from the Septuagint? And that was code. Oh, no, that wasn't kosher.
That's just sign. That's just
What are you
face.
asking? Well, written in gold?
Yeah.
No, don't worry about the gold part. The gold part was just, the gold part was just to, because it was nice. It was the base of English. We're talking about, are you allowed to write a section of the Torah and that's not complete? And we said that it seems like you are. We said, no, it wasn't really written. It was just Rashi Tevas. Okay. Kitanai. This is really a machlekes tanaim. In case of Megillah Tinnikul Stamid Bevim Daitel Hashtem Mutter. You shouldn't write a scroll for a child to learn from, but if you were intending to complete it, he's allowed to use it right now, even though it's not complete. Rabbi Yudah Brachus ad Daramabel. Rabbi Yudah says from Brachus until Daramabel, until the flood. The Teres Kainim ad Vayhi Bayim Mashmini, and in Teres Kainim until, what is he saying? That's what the child would be reading from. Is Rabbi Yehuda arguing?
Example of a
Is Rabbi Yehuda arguing? Let me look in your thing. Rabbi Yehuda says in the book of Genesis, he may write a scroll from the beginning until the generation of the flood. In Teres Kayanim, you could write a scroll. You can, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're allowed to make these small scrolls. Well, Teres Kayanim means Vayikra. I guess he's arguing. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Actually, should we leave it over here?
Go to the
Top of next page. I'm Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbana. Torah Megillah Nitna. The Torah was given scrolls. In other words, when Moshe Rabbeinu was giving us the Torah in the desert, he gave us piece of parchment as we were going along. Shnemar Azamartini Basav Megillah Sefer Kasavalai. Then I said, I have come with a scroll of parchment that was written on it. Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Reb Shimon Lakish says Torah Chasum Nitna. So it's really a machlekes. Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. It was the Torah given at the end of the 40 years as a scroll. Take the scroll. Means the entire thing. That's in like not Zaysa Bracha, I think. Zaysa Bracha or Hasinu. V'idach Nami Yaksiv Lakayach. What about Rabbi Yochanan? What does he do with that pasuk that says take the whole Torah? Says yeah, it was glued together afterwards. V'idach Nami Yaksiv Megillah Sefer Kasavalai. What does Rish Lakish do with it? It says a Megillah. Megillah sounds like it's not a complete Torah. It means like just like a little piece of it. No, he holds that the whole Torah is called the Megillah. The in the prophet in Zechariah it says, he said to me, what do I see? Vaimar ani raya, Vaimar ani. Vaimar, how does it go? Vaimar ani or Vaimar? I said, ani raya Megillah afa. What? See that? And he said to me, what? And I said, Vaimar ani. I see a flying scroll. Okay. Inami, another answer. So basically what we're saying here, we're saying is that the Torah was called the Megillah. Yeah, he said he sees a flying scroll. He's referring to the whole Torah there. Inami, or else look at Rab Levi. Like Rab Levi says, Dam Rab Levi. Rab Levi says, Shmeina Parshas Nem Rabbi Yemshukim by a Mishkan. There were 8 portions that were said on the day that the Mishkan was set up, which is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? In other words, that these parshas that we're about to say, these are exceptions, and these were actually written in scrolls. What were these portions? Eluhain. They are Parshas Kayanim, the section of Kayanim which is Parshas Emor. Parshas Leviim, which is Parshas Balescha. Parshas Tmeim, which I think is also Parshas Balescha. Parshas Shiluach Tmeim, I'm not sure what that is. Parshas Achrei Mos, that's a section about Yom Kippur that was said on that day, because the sons of Aaron died, and that was taught. Parshas Shesuyayin, which is also in that section of Achrei Mos. Parshas Neiros, which is Balescha at the beginning. Parshas Paraduma, which is Chukas. Okay. Let's leave it over here.
Oh, what are we gonna do for the rest of the day then?
Okay.
It's a long Sunday then.
There's a bris, my charity to Israel Weberman grandson. Kut. Okay.
So now we're